Welcome to the Author Studio at BookExpo America 2013 in New York City. Right now we're sitting with author Heather Terrell, and she's written a book called Relic.
That's right.
Before we get into the specifics of Relic, tell me about the genre.
The genre is really unusual. It is sort of a genre-bending book. It is fantasy, historical fiction, and a little bit of dystopia. And that sort of all arose both from my interests and my passions in writing, but also from the setting itself. The setting takes place on an Arctic island after a catastrophic world flood, where the people choose to live in an intentionally medieval way because they believe all modern advancements led to the downfall of mankind. And they excavate on the shores of the island artifacts from our world. So in order to kind of get at the theme I'm interested in, I had to kind of create this unusual genre.
Now, for those unfamiliar, dystopia, the opposite of utopia?
Opposite of utopia. Utopia, as you probably know, is derived from Thomas More's book in the 1600s, 1500s, and it describes an idyllic world. And dystopia is the opposite of that.
Now, this is your sixth book, correct?
It is my sixth book.
And it's a genre you have not written in before. So why did you choose this genre?
Well, this genre, there's a little piece of it I've written before, which is historical fiction, but I haven't done fantasy or dystopia before. My first three books were for an adult audience. They're historical suspense. And I used multi-layered tales, some set in the past, some set in modern times, to tell my story. It's sort of a retelling of the past. My first young adult series, which came out last year, sort of took a spin on that, but set it entirely in modern times and had a supernatural component to it. This time I tried sort of a mix of genres to get at the theme I'm interested in, which is kind of giving the readers a prism through which to view the past, present, and future, and a recognition that often our culture and our leaders utilize myth and legend, art and symbols to refashion the past and refashion our present.
Now, Heather, most authors stick with the genre they know and they feel comfortable with.
Yes, it's a risk,
they
I know.
Don't skip around. Yeah. Tell me, how risky was it? Was it stressful for you?
No, it was actually a really invigorating journey, I would say, much like the Arctic race that goes on in the book. But it was really exciting, and I mean, I definitely had to immerse myself sort of in those worlds, but you know, fantasy is a genre that I've always loved reading, so it's one that was really familiar to me. And dystopia was one that I had always enjoyed reading. You know, back 1984, Handmaid's Tale, Margaret Atwood's book. So it was really fun for me to kind of take all my years of reading, my years of passionate reading, and sort of reformulate them into my own genre.
What's your physical process when you sit down to write, and what's your mental process? Do you draw from your own past experiences? How much research do you do? Or is it just you sit down at the keyboard and whatever pops into your mind, whatever you can imagine, that's what you go with?
Wow. It's kind of a melee of all those different things. I do a tremendous amount
Melee
of
is a good word.
Yes, it
because
is.
It's probably chaotic at times.
It
yes?
is, especially since I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old that I have to drown out. That's step number one of my experience. Research is what drove me to writing. I didn't start out as a writer. I was a corporate lawyer here in New York City for 12 years, and so I'm very research driven. You know, it's very important to me to get all the details accurate, especially the historical details. That's why, in a way, fantasy was so liberating, because you're creating your own universe, so the rules are a little bit softer. But research plays a huge role both in how I write and how I'm inspired to write. Really, a lot of my stories come from all the historical reading and research that I do just on my own time. So research first, and then right into the world second.
Speaking of liberating, has being an author allowed you to give up the corporate legal?
At least for now, Les, I hope. I had many wonderful years as a commercial litigator here in New York City, but my passion was always the larger mysteries of the past and sort of the hidden truths and legend, lore, and myth. So it's really kind of hard to put those together with working as a lawyer. So, you know, for me, stepping away from that and stepping into the world of writing has really been a fantasy of its own.
Well, tell me about that. I'm assuming that what you did was fairly lucrative here in New York City.
Yes.
So how risky was it for you to give that up full time to become an author?
Risky enough that I had to move to somewhere else. My husband and I live in Pittsburgh now,
okay.
And that has really allowed us the flexibility for me to pursue, you know, really my dream of writing. Living in New York, I probably would have had to continue on. as a lawyer, because as you said, it is lucrative, and New York is a wonderful city, but an expensive city. So it really did give me the freedom and the flexibility to do that.
I understand. Tell me a little bit about Relic.
Relic is, it's with its mix of genres, it's hard to describe. It's sort of set in a Games of Thrones-esque world, although that is really too shorthand for what it is. It's heroine.
But it's something people can relate to these days.
Right. I mean, it certainly gives you a general framework for the story, although it is set in the future in an Arctic medieval world where the people excavate the remains of our past. In it, the heroine, Eva, she has to take her slain brother's place in something called the testing, which is a dangerous race, the goal of which, and the race itself is actually a race into the tundra and then the excavation itself. And the goal of this testing is to decide who's going to rule the last survivors of the catastrophic world flood. But as I mentioned, the book is really much more than uncovering the truths of Eva's world. The book is about giving the readers that prism through which to look differently at the past and the present and the future.
And how's it been accepted so far?
Well, it's not out yet. It's released in October, but it's
I'm sure you had friends and family read a little bit
Oh,
of it,
everybody
yes?
loves it. And
Okay.
my publisher has been, I mean, it's definitely, they are so behind it and they're really excited for it. And it has, I think I mentioned to you, an educational component. We did an educator's guide for it. And there's just been a lot of interest and a lot of buzz around the book. So I'm really, really excited for it.
Kind of blows my mind. This is so different from corporate law.
It is so,
So
different from
different.
corporate law.
Yeah.
It is so different, but it's so, for me, it's such a refreshing change, a welcome one.
She is Heather Terrell. The book is called Relic. Thank you for coming by.
Thank you. Thank you.